my name's Matt. I was diagnosed originally with ulcerative colitis back in 2006. I then ultimately had to have my bowel removed, my large intestine removed in 2007. And then in 2008, I had J-pouch surgery. So now in 2015, it's now some 17 years later. So I thought it might be helpful for me to share with you some different advice and tips and guidance, or really, I suppose, things that I've learned over these 17 years. Now, one thing to mention, I'm not a doctor, I don't have any medical training. This is just things that I've learned from my own experience, in some cases the hard way, that hopefully helps you to live a better life. So I've sort of broken this down into different sections. So first of all, we're going to be talking about diet and about hydration. Then I'm going to be talking a bit about sleeping, talking about vitamins and supplements, medication, some of the practicalities around going to the toilet on the day-to-day, thinking about travel and the impact it can have on that. Also talking a bit about flare-ups, those times where the pouch becomes inflamed or you get difficulties in that area, and then talking about gas and how gas can manifest itself and how it can be a gift or a curse depending on which way you look at it. So I've written down some notes down here to sort of keep me on some kind of track. If you do find this video helpful, please feel free to like the video. Also, please subscribe. If this goes down well, then I intend to be doing some more videos along these lines. Likewise, if there's anything that I talk about that you'd like me to expand upon or elaborate upon, or if there's any other particular aspects of living with a J-pouch that you'd like to me to make a video about, please feel free to put that in the comments. I'm more than happy to share any of the things that I've learned over the years, and hopefully it can help you. So first of all, about diet and about hydration. Now, when it comes to what you can and can't eat, in the early days of having the surgery, there are certain limitations, and you'll find that you may have to gradually start to incorporate things back into your diet. Once a period of time has passed, you'll find that what you can eat goes back to relatively normal. However, there are some caveats. So first of all, let's talk about what you can and what you can't eat. So things that I find are quite useful are things which are quite stodgy. Things like bread, things like pasta, things like rice. And I find things like that, those kind of carbs can be really helpful ways of bulking up and providing a bit of substance. On the other hand, you have to be careful not to get bunged up or clogged up, because of course that's always a real risk. So for that reason, I would say try to balance things which are quite water-based or quite soft balance those with things which are a little bit more stodgy and a bit more bulky. Things to avoid: things with hard skins, things like apple skins, cucumber skin, peppers, the skin on peppers. Always think about those things which are quite hard or quite tough. Now, of course, if you chew your food well, then that will help for sure. But it's recognizing the importance of balancing things which are quite tough to process with things which are quite easy. So what I would probably recommend with things like apples is either to peel them or to reduce or remove a good proportion of the skin. With things like peppers, likewise, again, just being mindful of those thicker skins and how they can be tougher. I would also be mindful of skins on things like maybe like potatoes. So for example, if you're going to have baked potatoes or jacket potatoes, I would probably just eat the inside. I'd probably swerve the skin. Again, it can be quite difficult to process. I would also say be mindful around things like onions or garlic. I tend to avoid them altogether, primarily because they produce too much gas. For me, you get to a point where if you have things which are too gassy or gas producing, you just find yourself going to the toilet with such a level of frequency that it starts to become both uncomfortable and inconvenient. So you haven't got to avoid onion and garlic altogether, but I would say be very mindful, particularly also things like micro meals and things like that, where they often tuck in onion powder or garlic powder to add flavour. So again, just sort of being mindful of maybe looking at the ingredients, because even things like garlic powder I found can produce a great deal of gas. In that regard, I would also say be mindful about your intake in terms of things like fruit and vegetables. Again, maintain a balanced diet, but recognise if I have too much vegetables, again, it's going to create too much output. So again, that's going to then create problems down the line. It's all about achieving balance. In terms of fluid and hydration, I mean, I remember in the early days they were talking about the importance of making sure that you drink enough water and that you're gonna lose more. And to be fair, over the years, I just tend to drink a regular amount. You know, I just try to ensure that I drink enough liquids and sufficient liquids. At the moment, right now, I can drink pretty much anything. Coffee, tea, you know, things with high caffeine content don't really give me any problems, but I know for some people they can. I tend to find with coffee, that decaf coffee impacts me better, but if it's caffeinated, it still tends to be fine. What I'd also say in terms of gas is also to be mindful of sugar. You know, things which are high in sugar, again, you'll tend to find produce more gas. So you've got to sort of have that in moderation. In terms of fats and fatty foods, again, things which are quite high in oil and quite an oily sort of consistency, things like chips or fries or items which have been fried, like fried chicken, things like that. Again, you've got to be careful, you know, in terms of high fatty foods or foods which have got a lot of oils in them. Again, I tend to find that quite it can be quite triggering. Again, it can lead to, you know, excessive production. Or I tend to find things with high levels of fat sort of travel through you quickly. they don't hang around for long. I found quite a good success over the years with nuts. Mainly cashews, and I tend with cashews I find the best way was to buy them raw and then bake them yourself. So you put them on an oven tray, put them in the oven and basically bake them, or you can put them under the grill and grill them. And I found if you have things like cashews and you chew them well, that can add a nice amount of consistency. So again, it just creates a situation where things don't move through too quickly. Plus, also with the cashews, there's quite a lot of calories there. In terms of that, apart from that, that's about it really. I mean, in terms of the only other thing I was thinking of in terms of drinking would be alcohol. Now, personally, I avoid alcohol altogether. I found that it didn't really sit well with me, so I tend to go for non-alcoholic drinks. So you can still have the idea of having, you know, wine or beer, but obviously without the alcohol. And I found for me that works well. I get the sensation of having alcohol without the unpleasantness. And you know, if you go to the supermarket today, there's many different non-alcohol products which are similar, you know, similar to the real deal. So that's in terms of food and hydration. The next was sleeping. Now, in terms of sleeping, I tend to find the side that I lay on makes a difference. So my natural sort of disposition is to lay on my left hand side. But I do find that at times if I lay on the left hand side, then the urge to go to the toilet comes more frequently. So if you're in a situation where you've been going to the toilet quite a lot, and you know, you go into bed and you lay down and you find as soon as you lay down, you then suddenly get that urge to go to the toilet again. You may relate to this. Then what I found is that if I lay on the right hand side, which isn't quite as comfortable or as natural for me, then I tend to find that the urges on the right hand side are not as powerful. So it's more a state where I'm then able to go to sleep, and then once I'm asleep, I'm then usually okay. And then I may wake up in the night to go to the toilet. But you know, generally speaking, laying on the left hand side is my preference. But as I say, if I'm finding that that's, you know, I'm just laying down on the left, and then you get that urge where you need to go again, and it's happening again and again, I think, okay, I'll just lay on the right hand side, go to sleep, and and take it from there. I kind of obviously value sleep more than necessarily being optimally comfortable. I can't lay on my back. That's not to do with the J pouch. That's due to snoring. So if I lay on my back, then that leads to a whole new heap of problems. In terms of vitamins and supplements, now this was something that I did receive, and I didn't receive a great deal of guidance on. So I've sort of picked those up as I've gone along. Now I take a range of different supplements, so I thought I'd bring them along to it's like a show and tell situation. So I take a range of different vitamins primarily because I recognise that my absorption is likely to be impacted due to the surgery and due to the damage that's obviously been done to the small intestine whilst obviously producing or making the J pouch. Now, I personally found that multivitamins didn't really work for me. In fact, I found that multivitamins gave me more problems. So over the years, I've gradually accrued some sort of key vitamins, and I kind of take them individually. So I take vitamin D3. Now, primarily I take vitamin D3 because here I live in the northwest in England, and we don't get we do get sun. Today's actually quite a sunny day. Today's an exception, but we don't get a great deal of sun. So I take the vitamin D3 to sort of top up on the lack of sun. I also take vitamin B12. I've got this one here. So I take vitamin B12 primarily due to, again, it's something, my understanding is it's something which can be affected in terms of the absorption. Oh, by the way, so in terms of vitamin D3, I take 1,000 IU, so that's the vitamin D3. The B12 I take 1,000 IU. So again, or 1,000 UG. So with the actual dosages, I did some research at the time to try to figure out what the optimum level was, and these tend to be the optimum level for me. I also take vitamin C and zinc as well. Again, I found that when I started taking this, I got less colds and less things of that nature. One thing I found was that after the surgery, without a doubt, my immune system was impacted, for sure. I found that I got many more colds. At one point, I got pneumonia. You know, these are sort of things that previously I hadn't experienced. So I take vitamin C and zinc in order to boost my immune system. And again, this is 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C with zinc. And I found since taking this, the instances where I've had things like colds have reduced significantly. I also take lycopene. So this is 50 milligrams of lycopene, and again, that's for your prostate. You know, for those of us who get into that age, we have to start thinking about things like that. The other one I take is lutein and zeaxanthin. There you go. So basically carotenoids. So that's basically for your eyes. So I take that to reduce the risk of macular degeneration. There you go. In terms of helping with J pouch, what I do take is moringa leaf. So I'm not sure if that's in focus or not. So moringa leaf, and I take 2,000 milligrams. I take two of those, two capsules a day. Now, I never used to take moringa, but somebody mentioned it, and I've found since I've been taking it, as I take two capsules every morning, and since I've been taking it, I've found the number of flare-ups that I've had have reduced. I would say significantly. For me, it's made a massive difference. I tend to find, for me, since I've been taking the moringa, it's created more of a calmness to my stomach and my bowel. I found the flare-ups that I get, because of course from time to time you are going to get flare-ups where things start to become quite sort of like inflamed. Sometimes people call it pouchitis, this idea of like the inflammation in the pouch. I found that the instances of that have reduced significantly, but what I also found was when you do get flare-ups, they don't last for as long as they used to. So for me, the moringa has been really helpful, really helpful. So that's about it for sort of the vitamins and supplements. I also take, I take protein every day, but again, that's more to try to sort of make up sort of the balance, and to recognise at my age you start to get deterioration in terms of muscle. So for that reason, I also take protein. So that's the vitamins and supplements side. In terms of medication, so what do I take? So I take loperamide hydrochloride. So I take 2 milligram capsules, and I take 3 of those a day. So I take 2 milligrams of loperamide in the morning when I get up. So I get up and have a shower, and then I take 1 tablet, say for 2 milligrams. I take another tablet around about 2:30 in the afternoon, and then I take a 3rd tablet at bedtime. So 2 milligrams 3 times a day, and I've been doing that for many years now. I tried to reduce it, but I found that my frequency of going to the toilet was too often. It added too much of an impact on the frequency. If I took more than that, then there's a much more risk of becoming sort of constipated and sort of bunged up. So for that reason, I found that that's the sweet spot. There was a time where I could just take 2 a day, and I found that 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening was enough. But then I found probably a few years ago now that one at 2:30 just helped. Again, it just helped to sort of balance things out. But I realised with obviously medication, it depends on how the meds work for you. But bear in mind, obviously I've been taking loperamide now for 17 years. One of the things I was worried about was, over the time I thought, is my body going to get used to it? So am I gradually going to have to take more and more? Like I say, there was a time where I was taking 2 and now I take 3. I don't think that's bad for 17 years. In terms of side effects, I don't really notice any noticeable side effects, but obviously I've been taking them for that long. So that was medication. Next up, going to the toilet. Now, one of the things that was said to me was, before the surgery, is they said to me, in terms of success, what do we mean by success? And they suggested that somewhere between 7 and I think it was 11, 12 times a day is what they were kind of suggesting I would go to the toilet. Now, this is sort of changed over the years. So I would say I probably go 5, 6 times a day, maybe. It really depends. I tend to find if I travel, then sometimes that can knock it out of kilter a little bit. So I'll have a period where I don't go for quite some hours, and then I go in like a cluster at the end of the day. But as I say, I tend to find sort of 5, 6 times a day, sometimes 7, obviously sometimes more. But as you can imagine, you get to a point where you don't really keep count, and you get to the point where when you basically need to wee, then you tend to just sit down to wee, and you tend to go to the toilet at the same time. In terms of advice, so one thing I would say is the importance of keeping that whole region clean. Cleanliness is absolutely key. So I tend to use wet wipes, the ones you can put down flush down the toilet, like flushable wipes. I find them particularly helpful, purely because you can't just use dry tissue paper. You can't keep clean enough. One of the things you've got to recognise is that you do have pores around, in that region, and they can get blocked, and you can get what essentially a spots, which can get infected and can get very uncomfortable. So without a doubt, carrying wipes with you when you go to the toilet to keep yourself clean is key. It's an area where you've got to be very, very diligent to try to maintain health in that particular area. There are, of course, times, and of course, when you're going to the toilet a lot, there's times where you're going to get uncomfortable. So what I tend to use, I've used different products over the years. So I use Germaloids cream is what I tend to use. Personally, I find it's quite helpful. Number one, numbing. So if you've been going to the toilet quite a lot and you start to get real sort of sensitivity in that area, then I find it's quite good. It's got quite good numbing properties. I also like the consistency. Again, I find it quite easy to handle, but I also find it creates a bit of a barrier. So then when you go to the toilet the next time, that obviously when you go to it doesn't maintain as direct contact with the skin, because you've got that cream on there to sort of form a bit of a barrier. In terms of how to apply germaloids, obviously they give like a little plastic tube in there. I'm not quite sure what you're supposed to do with that, but I'm not going to be poking that around. So what I tend to do is I tend to get the toilet paper, get 3 squares, create them into a square, put a blob of the cream in the middle, and then I use that and then aim for the aim for the bullseye, with a view to then using that to sort of hit the key area. So again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create, obviously to hit the area which is sore, but also to go slightly around it. Again, just to form a little bit of a barrier. 1, to reduce sensitivity and pain, but 2, just to form a little bit of a barrier, sort of for future reference. Talking about going to the toilet and travel. As you can imagine, you find yourself in all sorts of different places, and my job involved over the years a lot of travel across the country, and you find yourself in some situations and some predicaments, and in some instances some of the toilets you encounter aren't necessarily the cleanest. So what I find is particularly helpful are these. So again, these are disposable paper toilet seat covers, and they come in like a little handy sized pack that you can put in a pocket. These are quite helpful if you need to go to the toilet somewhere and you want to sit down, but the toilet isn't really the best. So you can give the seat a bit of a wipe, you can put those down, and it saves you spending half an hour placing individual pieces of tissue around the toilet. Now, bear in mind, it won't cover the whole seat. You might have to pull a couple of more sheets of paper to sort of cover the excess. This is the thing, when you have J-pouch surgery, when you go to the toilet, it's noisy. It's explosive, it's smelly, and those are the realities. You can't hover. You're not in a situation where you can hover over the toilet. If you hover, then it's likely you're gonna create a real mess that's gonna be a nightmare to tidy up. So you have to sit down, and obviously it's more relaxing as well to sit down. So in terms of travel, I find that quite helpful, and obviously the wet wipes, the flushable wipes, you can also get those in travel packs as well. So I keep those stashed. In terms of flare-ups, now you will get flare-ups from time to time. These are situations where you'll find your abdomen starts to become inflamed. You'll find that your bowel area feels uncomfortable, but also where you start to go with a greater level of frequency. Now, what I found helped a great deal was chewable Pepto-Bismol. The liquid, not so much, but the chewable ones. Now, here in the UK, to get the chewable ones is difficult, so you have to import them from America. You can't buy these. You used to be able to buy these over the counter, but not anymore. For some reason, they dropped them here in the UK. Now, the chewable ones I found helped me a great deal. 2 was a little bit too much, so if you have 2 chewable tablets, I found it a little bit too much, and that could actually bung you up even more. But just taking one, take one every sort of 4 to 6 hours, and maybe take a couple, take one, do it 4 or 5 hours, take another one. And I found that would again stifle and reduce the duration of the flare-ups. That said, since I've been taking the Moringa, I can't even remember the last time I've had the Pepto. So, I was taking the Pepto probably once every couple of weeks. Now, I can't even remember the last time that I had the Pepto. So for me, the Moringa was a better overall solution in terms of reducing the flare-ups and the duration of the flare-ups, and just the unpleasantness that comes from flare-ups. Talking about gas, the next theme I talk about is gas. The reality is we all get gas, and as someone with a J-pouch, you obviously have to be careful. One of the things you have to be careful of is passing gas, because in some cases, particularly if you get a bit sore down there, it can be difficult to differentiate, is this gas or is this, I need to go to the toilet. And if you don't want to have a trouser accident, you tend to, for that reason, sit on the toilet and release gas. But there are times where it can become tricky to release it. I'll give you an example. You're laying in bed and you feel the gas building up, so you then rush to the toilet, or you go with pace to the toilet. You're still in the toilet, and you can't get the gas out. The gas is, you can sometimes feel or hear it bubble back up again, and you think, it's now gone too high, it's not going to come out. So if you are in a position where you're struggling to release gas, a strategy is this, and I found this quite helpful over the years, is to place yourself in the recovery position. So I'm not going to demonstrate it here, but if you look at videos in terms of like first aid videos, and you see someone being placed into the recovery position, try that. Try placing yourself in the recovery position. So you kind of lay on the side and you kind of roll over and you raise one knee up. Try that. For me, I found that is the optimum position in order to release gas. It seems to get it into the right position. It also allows me to differentiate between gas and something else, and again enables me to release it. And again, I found that to be helpful. So that was about it. I've gone through the different list of initial things that sort of came to mind. And again, bear in mind, just as a disclaimer, I don't have any medical training, so please just consider this to be giving you an insight into what I do and what's worked for me. Hopefully you found this video to be helpful. If you do know anyone else that you feel it would be of benefit to, please share it with them. Also, if you did like the video, please hit me up with a like. Again, it just helps to sort of get this video out to more people. If you do have any comments, please put them in the comments section. If you do have any questions, please put them down. I'm more than happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability. Likewise, if there's any other topics or themes that you think would be helpful, for another video, again, let me know, and I'm more than happy to produce some more videos, again, offering some kind of insight into what I've picked up and what I've learned over the years. But in the meantime, thanks for watching the video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. Bye now.